Hi, I'm Ross Tayler. Welcome to Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space. Other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. So pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today I'm happy to welcome Matthew Ashdown to Sacred Sundays. Matthew is a guide, teacher, and catalyst for deep transformation. Through his work with gene keys, mythic imagination, and archetypes, he helps individuals shed societal conditioning and realign with their unique gifts and life purpose. With one-on-one sessions, group courses, and immersive retreats, Matthew supports people in moving from force and scarcity into flow, abundance, and embodied joy. As he says, when you understand your true nature, everything, work, relationships, service, becomes more graceful, resonant, and alive. In addition to his own business, he works with the Gene Keys organization as the Community Engagement Manager. Welcome, Matthew.
Hi, Ross. Thank you for having me. Very much looking forward to our conversation together today.
As am I. We've only had the opportunity to talk in passing, and we both have this crossover with human design and gene keys and a passion for both. And we're quite aligned in, I think, the work that we do. I'm sure that we show up quite differently in that work, but I'm just so excited to have a longer conversation that isn't have the pressure of time and having to be doing things where we were, if that makes sense.
Passing in the night.
Exactly. So Matthew is going to begin by sharing an attunement with us. Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Ross. So yeah, as Ross mentioned there, a lot of my work is with this foundational piece of work called the Gene Keys, which is a contemplative path. As Ross mentioned, he works with human design. Gene Keys has its roots in the I Ching in the same way that human design does, and has some human design within it too. So we're going to enter into this with a bit of a pause, actually, a bit of an attunement to the work of the Gene Keys, which is this contemplative path. So my invitation at this moment would be for you, as long as you're not driving anywhere, as long as you're listening in a place where you can be still, where you can close your eyes, is to close your eyes, to drop in, to begin to turn your attention inwards, because this contemplation of who we are is something that takes place on the inside of our being. It's irrespective of what's going on in the world around us. So let's turn our attention to our breath. With each breath that we take, we can move deeper into presence, deeper into awareness of what's going on with inside of ourselves. We slow down. We step away from the busyness of the world, the noise of the world, the conditioning of the world. We begin to attune to that still, quiet voice within, our intuition. We make space to hear our deeper presence. And so with each deep breath in and out, with each exhale, within each inhale, we're moving deeper into this presence, into this present moment. And as we work with the Gene Keys, we might come across these numbers and these keys. At first, it can seem like there's a complexity to it, and there is a complexity. But here we begin with the simple, that it can be very simple to contemplate. And oftentimes, contemplation is viewed or understood as something of the mind. But this is a full presence that we bring to our physical, our emotional, our mental beings. And so as you're in this space of pause in this moment, as you're sitting here in the quiet, just notice what's going on inside of your body at this moment. Are you feeling light and relaxed? Are you feeling tension? If you're feeling tension, where do you feel that in the body? What happens when you simply bring awareness to it? Not with any intention to change anything, to make anything better, just to bring attention to it, to breathe into that tension, into that constriction within your being. Notice how your feet are planted on the floor. Notice where your hands are. Notice how your shoulders are. Just become aware of your physicality, your physical being. The physical body sometimes talks to us the loudest, but sometimes we have to allow ourselves the pause. We have to allow ourselves to slow down, to listen to what's going on. And now as we listen, as we feel into our body, maybe you've had experiences in this day that have caused a heightened emotion of some kind. Perhaps you've been feeling overwhelmed. Perhaps you've been feeling sadness. Perhaps you've been feeling joy. In these moments of pause, we can just bring our attention mindfully to those states, those feelings, those experiences. Again, we might notice where they reside within our body. If we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling fearful, where does that show up in the body? If you're feeling lightness and joy and gratitude, how do you experience that? How do you feel that? Sometimes in the busyness of the day, it can just be really valuable to take those little pauses. We don't need to always be seated in this way. We could be moving through a grocery store. We could be walking through a busy street. We could be on our way to work. We could be doing anything really. These pauses don't necessarily mean that we stop moving, but that we just pause internally. And in those pauses too, we might begin to notice the thoughts. Just notice the thoughts that are arising in this moment. Are they thoughts of this present moment, or are they thoughts about aspects of your life, challenges in your life? Or are you making space for thoughts that allow you to break free of some of the conditioning of the world? As you tune in, as you listen, perhaps you get to hear that ever-present voice of your intuition. And so just be for a few moments here in silence. And if thoughts arise, we just simply thank them. If they're disruptive thoughts or they feel like distractions, we simply thank them. And so contemplation is of the body, is of the emotions, is of the mind. As we contemplate in the moments of challenge in our life, in the moments of quiet in our life, we might receive those insights on the mental plane. And as those mental insights begin to move through us, they open up to the potential for breakthroughs, emotional breakthroughs in our lives. And some, as they're allowed to, as we allow them to within our being, become these fully embodied epiphanies. And so this work with the gene keys is something that opens us up to the potential for insight, breakthroughs and epiphanies on the mental, the emotional, the physical levels of our being. And so with openness and curiosity today, perhaps you have your own question that you want to bring to our space today. Perhaps it might be answered through words that are spoken by myself or Ross, or perhaps the answer will arise in your own being just by simply tuning into the field. And so I invite you to bring your full awareness now back to your physical being in this here and now. With your feet firmly planted on the floor, beginning to wiggle your fingers, your toes, and just opening up becoming curious as to what this time together might bring for you. As Ross and I show up here now in conversation to serve you and to serve this body of work known as the Gene Keys. And whenever you're ready, Ross included, you can open your eyes and we can begin to converse.
Thanks, Matthew, for that attunement. It was, for me, I actually have a lot of joy in this moment. I feel really reminded of the Art of Contemplation, which is the little book that you can read as you enter the Gene Keys work. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for that waking up in me again, even though it's something that I do quite often.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, the Art of Contemplation is, a lot of people, when they hear about the Gene Keys, they hear of these numbers and it can feel like a complexity to it. Richard Rudd's the creator of the Gene Keys, and one of his little books is, as you mentioned, his smallest book in many ways. I think it is his smallest book, is The Art of Contemplation. But it's just the fundamental ground of this whole body of work. So even if the numbers go over our heads, the Art of Contemplation is something any one of us can practice in any moment. So I love hearing that it's causing some joy to bubble forth for you.
Mm-hmm. And it actually leads into my first question, which is, I think in society, we're looking for answers and we tend to be oriented to the outside of ourselves. And the contemplative path is, as what you mentioned at the beginning, is very different than that. It's not reactive at all. And so perhaps you could say a little bit more about the contemplative path, because I actually believe it's one of the unique things about the Gene Keys. Gene Keys is not a quick solution to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Very much different than that. And that is what also makes it so special, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're coming to the Gene Keys body of work for the quick fix, then it might disappoint you there. It is something that is, something that we steep with for some time, and it's something that continuously unravels, and that is part of the joy of the experience. And I will say that when somebody comes to Gene Keys, you go to the website, you can generate your own free profile, which is your unique blueprint of Gene Keys based upon the day and the time and the place that you were born. And it can look like, oh man, we're entering into this and there's so much certainty in what's being shared. And it could so easily be the trap for us to look at that as being our authority in that sense, as telling us who we are and what we're about and what we're here to do in life. And some people have used it in that way. I'm sure I used it that way in the beginning too. I'm sure I came to it with a sense of, I need some certainty here. Let me see. This looks like it's got a system that can offer me that. And then when we enter into it, we recognize that it is something that we have to allow for it to birth in its own way in its own time through us. And for me, it's kind of, after all these years of working with it, it's still a gift that keeps on giving. I kind of work less and less with my profile, a lot less than I used to in that way. There's 64 Gene Keys altogether, same as there's the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. They offer so much room for contemplation. And so however we're approaching it, we've got this map, and it is a map, but we don't want to give our power to that map outside of ourselves. It is that turning inwards towards what's arising inside of ourselves. Because very often we'll work with people with the Gene Keys, and they'll start or commit to a retreat. Gene Keys offers a lot of these ongoing retreats, and people will start them, and then life will move them in some direction, and it seems to be pulling them away from the time that they can give to the retreat and to the Gene Keys. And we almost kind of smile at that, because this is about what life brings your way. And the Gene Keys can be these guideposts that we return to from time to time, or often, depending on how much of a passion and love we have for it, but that it is ultimately us who gives our attention to it in our space of contemplation, that we pause, that we open ourselves up to a curiosity around this, because two people might have identical profiles. I have a twin brother and sister born a minute apart, very similar, well, actually identical Gene Keys profiles. Absolutely not identical people, but they can recognize this. They can see themselves in these archetypes, that each of these journeys or these Gene Keys are archetypal journeys that offer these guideposts for us. And so two people might have the same gene key in the same place in their gene keys profile, and yet come to experience it in a very different way. Because it is ultimately, okay, this is occurring for me in life at this time. There's a particular incident that's taking place. And what is that for me in this moment, in this here and now? And I think one of the greatest gifts for me that came out of the gene keys came to me in a time in my life when I was contemplating the nature of shadow a lot. And yet it felt like it was something I could only just wallow in and stay stuck in. And one of the reframes that came from this body of work that was so supportive and that resonated for me was this notion that every shadow contains a gift. And so I could contemplate that, and I could contemplate these shadows, these parts of myself that I had run from or hidden or hadn't even been aware of inside of myself, and be able to bring attention to them, trusting and knowing that somewhere throughout this body of work of the gene keys that I could make some connections and I could contemplate and find my way through. So the gene keys would offer some guidance around it, but the ultimate truth came from within. My ultimate understanding, my ultimate awareness came from taking this into the pauses, taking this into those moments when I was experiencing constriction and challenges and pain, and to be able to bring full presence and awareness. And this is what we've cultivated is a contemplative community. This isn't a community where we offer therapeutic advice or anything like that to people. This is a community where we create space for contemplation. So yeah, it's been a big part of this. It's the foundation to all of this work with the gene keys. And if we enter from that space, remembering that it's not about accumulating knowledge, because you could find lots of books written by Richard Rudd about the gene keys, and there's lots of potential knowledge that you could accrue and learn, but something he'll say again and again, and something that is drawn out of us from going into deep contemplation, is that it's a wisdom transmission. This is about connecting into the innate wisdom within inside of our own being as we really attune to our own inner authority.
I love that. And at the beginning, before we actually pressed record, I was sharing with you that I was having my own little journey with a particular gene key, and that it kind of culminated in some awareness this morning. And it really speaks to what you're saying. So I think I will share it. And I think I was first introduced to the gene keys when I was working at a treatment center back in 2020. And one of the clients was deeply immersed in the gene keys and asked me for my birth date, and actually shared with me the 4 keys for my activation sequence. I didn't know that at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, this is super cool. It's lots of great information. And at the same time, it was like too much for me in that moment. And so later on, I got into human design. And then, of course, gene keys tends to show up because there's so many similarities between the two. And so I guess I bounced back and forth through the two. So what I really wanted to share was that for me, my gene key of purpose, which is part of the activation sequence and then also part of the, oh my gosh, the
Venus?
The Venus sequence. Thank you. And so gene key 25 is my gene key of purpose. And the shadow of that is constriction. And I've literally been like bouncing in and out, trying to, well, not trying, but working with layer after layer after layer of that constriction. And this morning, I feel like I got to the core element of that shadow that has been holding me back, and also getting ready to birth the gift, as you mentioned. And what you really spoke to is how we're all different in that experience. And my version and my story of constriction is going to be different than someone else's journey of constriction, because we're all going to have a different story of what that plays out as. And so I just find that so fascinating and so different than a lot of the tools that are supporting our growth and supporting our spirituality out there, because I had to get there on my own, and I had to get there on my own terms, even though the universe was pushing me in that direction and creating a pressure that I had to look at it. And very quickly this morning, of course, I was like, oh, I need to go back to Gene Key 25 and read that, which again, human design, it's a similarity. So yeah, anything that arises for you hearing that, Matthew?
Well, I think the 25th gene key. So for anybody wondering, with each gene key, there's three words. There's a frequency band of words. And so there's three words associated with each gene key. One is the shadow, one is what's known as the gift, and the other is what's known as the siddhi. So the siddhi, you can kind of think of it as the pure essence of the gene key, free from any fear or conditioning. This is the pure essence of it. It's always present. It's always here. It's just whether we are able to recognize it or attune to it. The gift in many ways is the siddhi in action in the world. Right. So it's our gift to the world. It's like we come to this, we want to know what our gifts are. And a lot of the world we can get trapped in, oh, these are my gifts. And then we're proud of our gifts and we carry that pride out. But the Gene Keys is saying, hey, no, we find our gifts so we can give them away. Mm-hmm. And the shadow is the root of that. The shadow it's a part of ourselves that we've not understood from a mental level. It's a part of ourselves that might have been not understood by the world. It's a part of ourselves that might even be condemned by us or the world. And it's a part of ourselves that when we enter into it and when we allow ourselves to fully embrace it, it just opens us up to the gift. So we release the gift through fully embracing the shadow. And the 25th gene key is a beautiful example. So 25th gene key, it's kind of fundamental for anybody entering into this work, really, because it speaks to this core wound that each of us has that is wound up, that we feel this constriction and this tightness. Even as we were doing the breathing exercise at the beginning, somebody might have felt tightness or a constriction in the body somewhere. And that is what we're bringing this presence and awareness to, because there's so many possibilities for what's underneath that. Like you said, so 3 people might have the purpose of the 25th gene key, and yet it could mean something different to them. And the reason why I like this 25th gene key, the shadow is constriction, the gift is acceptance, and the siddhi is universal love. And acceptance is really that universal elixir for all of the keys, whatever keys you have in your profile. We have this little mantra in the gene keys: allow, accept, embrace. So allow means I might look at a shadow in a gene key. I might look at constriction. I might look at intolerance. My mind might say, I don't think that's me, right? But that's coming from the intellect. And we invite this curiosity. Gene keys works best with curiosity. And the allowing is like, allow for the possibility this might be something I haven't yet seen within myself. Right? It might be, and it's allow myself to feel it. So rather than run away from the constriction of the 25th, it's like, no, I'm actually going to presence it. I'm going to bring my attention to it. Not from a place of needing to resolve it or fix it or change it, but what about approaching it from a place of acceptance? So any of our shadows, we allow ourselves to notice it, to experience it, to go there. And the acceptance, first, I might see my shadow of reaction or intolerance, and then I might be like, I don't like that too much. So I'm not there in the acceptance. But as I learn to accept, as I come to accept, then that's what begins to transmute that shadow to release the gift. Right? So as we transmute the constriction, we begin to feel the gift of acceptance. And if you're somebody with the 25th gene key in your profile, chances are what happens is you get lots of opportunities in life to practice acceptance. So it's being able to bring that to any shadow. Another gene key is, I'm just going to choose a random, well, actually, Ross, choose a number between 1 and...
Let's go with 59.
So 59. So this moves from the shadow of dishonesty to the gift of intimacy, and it's the siddhi of transparency. So somebody with the 59th gene key in their profile might be somebody who's like really values honesty and depth and transparency, and all that they can see is the dishonesty of the world. Okay. And so the first place to come into is like, what's caused me to have such a reaction to the dishonesty of the world? What, if I bring my attention inwards, where have I been dishonest in my own life with myself? That dishonesty doesn't have to be the level of deception and dishonesty we might witness in, say, politics. It could be something like telling everybody I'm fine when I'm not, when I'm actually feeling a lot of pain and grief in my life. So as we open up to that, as we recognize where we might actually have a fear of intimacy in our life, as we allow that and as we allow ourselves the possibility, like it's almost like, oh, I want to see where I'm dishonest so I can actually see what gift is wanting to emerge from here. And so this is something people find with this work, is that they become keen to meet the shadow, not to stay there, not to wallow in them, and not to necessarily go looking for them. It's like, as we practice acceptance, as we become a source of love for people, return non-love with love in our world, then any aspects of our shadow we naturally meet, right? And so this allow, accept, embrace, allow myself to notice where I might be dishonest with myself in my life, even if it's in subtle ways. And that inside of that, I open up to accepting this. And in that acceptance of this, I become more accepting of others, and I become more intimate and allowing of that intimacy with others. And so we can take this, the teachings of the 25th gene key, that is your purpose, can then move on into so many of these different gene keys that we work with. And suddenly it doesn't seem like I'm having to learn all of this knowledge. It's like, oh, can I bring that into this? Because we might hear the word dishonesty too. And the mind might say, well, this dishonesty means this, this, and this. But actually, as we allow dishonesty to fully unravel itself, it becomes about so much more than we would have imagined it to be about. And the intimacy takes on another layer of meaning. So really, these gene keys, they each have these key words. They are like, they're portals. For me, they're portals in the sense that my mind might have a preconceived notion of what it means, but actually, as I allow myself to approach it with curiosity and allow it to unwind, I can get whole other kind of experiences that I would never have imagined. This to me is the beauty and wonder of this, is why, like even Richard, actually the 59th gene key is a great example. Richard Rudd, who created the gene keys, he's recorded audios for every single gene key, all 64 gene keys. And this 59th gene key is the only one. He's had to record it 3 times because it keeps unraveling something new and deeper for him. And who knows, he might not be done sharing it yet. We'll find out. But yeah, hopefully that gives you kind of a bit of a taste of how, yeah, when you're working. So when you've got this universal gene key, universal love, literally, and this is your purpose. Again, purpose is about what we're here to be. It's not about what we're here to do. And yet how many of us have had a sense of anxiety in our life because we didn't know what we're here to do? And it's like, maybe you're here to be. And a question for you, when you felt the constriction earlier and you moved through that, what did you notice inside of your being as that awareness dawned for you?
Right. So I'll name the constriction. My version of the constriction is needing to be saved. And so the constriction was about me, and I'm still in process with it, but it's about, maybe I'll give a little bit of history. I was born a month premature. I spent my first month in an incubator. So it's like, I've always been reaching out to the world for something. And so this story of being able to be saved would sort of feed that in some way. And yet it's also creating constriction in terms of being able to source my own power, my own strength. And so my acceptance of that is the releasing, and the opening of that constriction is kind of where I'm at in this moment. And from that, so much can flow in both directions. And the funny part, of course, is that, 3 or 4 days ago, I was in a guided meditation, and the question was posed, like, why are you here? Which is very much a purpose question. And without missing a beat, the answer was to embody universal love. So that's what started this revisitation of this particular gene key. It was already in motion.
Yeah, I love that. And you shared your process with this, and it isn't an immediate thing, right? It's not like, oh, I've noticed my constriction and poof, it's gone, right? It's like you're sharing that process of it, which I love to hear. And in that, could you feel even a slight softening of the constriction, just in that awareness of that? Like, could you feel your body relaxing at all, or?
Not immediately, because immediately I wanted to go grab the Gene Keys book. I wanted to go and find answers. And then the next thing that came was, no, stop. go into the forest. And so it was once I went into the forest and I slowed down and met the energy of the forest, that's when it started to feel it. I started to feel the beauty of it, really, because I don't need to think my way through it. It's like I just need to be with it. I really resonated with what you said about, people coming to the Gene Keys, seeing these very potent and powerful words. And I think acceptance is one of those. It's like I probably grabbed onto the word before I grabbed onto what needed to be transformed underneath. And on the other side of that, I mean, I shared Gene Key 59 as a point to talk about. And of course, it's in my profile. And what you said about bringing honesty in terms of the shadow, as you were talking, it just hit me with this wave of energy of like clarity, because I got stuck in the word dishonesty because I don't consider myself to be dishonest. And that was sort of keeping me stuck there. But the way you said what you said, it's like part of my gift is to bring truth, to speak the truth, to speak about the things in the world that aren't in alignment for me and possibly for others. And so anyway, I just got this wave. And so it just speaks to it's hard to put to words really what the Gene Keys can give us. And again, this shared foundation of the I Ching between these two bodies of work, I experience it in human design as much as I experience it in Gene Keys. Yeah. So you wanted to say something about Gene Key 25 or purpose?
Well, I think purpose. Yeah. I mean, I would say that a lot of people come into the work of the Gene Keys and they see that, if you look at your Gene Keys profile, at the bottom of this profile, there's this word purpose, and there's the Gene Key associated with that. And that, so many of us have been searching for that thing that we're here to do because the world says we must be and do something. And that we feel that pressure and we don't want to miss out. And it's actually driven deep, deep down by this sense of, this recognition that we have this life and it's not forever, that we're going to meet at some point and end in this life. And so, one of the Gene Keys actually speaks to this. The 28th Gene Key moves from the shadow of purposelessness, and the gift is what is the word totality, and then the city is immortality. It's interesting, actually. Funny that pops in. I was just looking at John Candy's Gene Keys profile the other day. He has this Gene Key 3 times in his life.
Oh, wow.
In his profile, 3 times.
Okay.
And so that sense of purposelessness, again, it's a word that we might look at. Yeah, I can resonate with that feeling of lacking a purpose. But what we find when we explore the 28th Gene Key is that it's asking us to look deeply into our fear of death. Right? We meet this fear of death that is actually driving so much of the Western world, especially. And we go and seek this. We want this sense of purpose. We want to achieve something. And when we return to this body of work, this is about our being, right? This is about there is doing. We do things in our world, and there's other parts of our Gene Keys profile that speak to that. But when we look at the very foundation of it, the purpose sphere, because they all sit within these spheres in our profile, is at the bottom of the chart. It's the root, it's the foundation, and it's about this state of being. So it's not that Ross has to do acceptance. Ross is accepting, right? This is his being. And so can we bring that into all that we do? Can we bring an awareness? For instance, for myself, mine is the 4th Gene Key, which moves from the shadow of intolerance, which is why I mentioned intolerance earlier, the gift of understanding in the city of forgiveness. And I remember a few years ago, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was on a property I was living on, and I was helping the owner out, and I was mucking out the stables for them. And I was actually kind of enjoying myself because I was connecting with the horses and just really contemplating, wow, even this is part of my purpose, right? In this moment. And the more that we can appreciate that, this is about the art of the subtle for me, the Gene Keys. Sometimes when we think of our purpose, we think of it in terms of a doing. But if we can begin our tuning to the subtle, when we can attune to and recognize this quality of this gift that we bring into the world, and recognize that within our fractal, a lot of times, you mentioned the 15th Gene Key. you're somebody who brings honesty to the world. And so you might meet the shadow of dishonesty in the world, right? Is that sometimes if we carry this gift into the world, we meet the shadow and it appears to be outside of ourselves and in others. And what that does is it strengthens the desire usually of somebody with that 59th gift to be that. And so rather than waiting on the world to become honest, you become that for the world. You become that vulnerable. I mean, we just heard that, and just when you were sharing about your experience with constriction, you were not holding back on what you were feeling and experiencing and the pain and the questioning and all that kind of stuff. And so that's a big part of this. So a lot of times people can look at their purpose sphere, and you go and talk to most of your friends and they'll probably have different purpose spheres. And so it's like, wow, isn't that cool knowing that this is a part of what you're bringing to the world just by showing up, even if you're not speaking. It's like this is your light. This is the frequency of light that you are sharing with the world just by being there, being who you are. So yeah, the purpose is something that people become drawn to us for. And I'll share, people do get disappointed when we don't tell them what they're here to do. It's like, what do you mean you can't tell? I came to you because you said you could. I was like, well, we've got these guideposts for your purpose. And like you said, Ross, this isn't something that, gives us those immediate answers straight away. But after so many years of working with this, I mean, I've done thousands of profiles in the last 10 years. It's like, wow, when I read their profiles to them and they can resonate with them, it's just, if there's some surface level things that resonate, just imagine what's deeper down that you haven't unpacked yet.
And that's so true, because 5 years ago, I would have read this. 5 years ago, I read about this particular gene key. And now it's like, I see how my whole life has been synchronistically giving me experiences to deepen my experience of this particular gene key. I can see it now. It makes so much sense. And so now I'm at a place of gratitude for all the constriction and all the struggle and all those things, because now it finally makes sense.
Yeah. What a place to get to when we can appreciate it. Wow. Thank you, constriction. Thank you, intolerance, for showing me how much I value understanding, how much I value acceptance, how much I value intimacy.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's abruptly shift gears a little bit. And I thank you, because we could easily keep going down that conversation. And I think you've given a taste, but I want to give you a few minutes, I laugh, to speak about your connection to the mythic and archetypal energies. Like, if you had to kind of give a taste of that, what would you want to say about that work that you do? Because I know it's important to you.
It is. Yeah. I think mythology came to me in my life in it came to me initially in meditations when I wasn't even really interested in mythology anymore, or at least I thought I wasn't on a conscious level. And this was long before the gene keys came in. And then as I began working with the gene keys, we recognized that each of these 64 gene keys, they're these archetypes. And, mythology is full of different archetypes. There's different characters in different cultures around the world. And some of these archetypes, they cross into different cultures. And although they take on different form, we can recognize them in there. And so in these times that we're in at the moment, we're in a time of deep change. There's lots of crises, and there's so much that we could be overwhelmed by. And for me, this is what myth is about, is how we can help meet these times with a mythic imagination. When we can start to recognize that these characters that we meet in life, these people that we meet, be they the trickster, or be they the magician, or be they the priestess or the empress, these different mythical characters that show up in different forms, they show up in our lives. The magician doesn't necessarily wave a wand with a pointy hat. They might be sitting behind a desk at Google and creating algorithms for future technologies of the world. And there's a timelessness to myth. So often the word myth is associated with not true, right? Talk about dishonesty, right? It's associated with this idea of not true. And yet, on some level, there is a deep truth to this, and there is a deep connection to the mythic that helps us to see, man, we are all parts, playing out these roles in life, and that not that we can pin down and everyone looks the same at all, but if we attune to, if we listen to, if we pay attention to those myths, they can offer us something of contemplation for our times. One of my favorite is the Grail mythologies, and I loved it when I came across Gene Keys because it's baked into there. One of the sequences is called the Pearl sequence, and in the Pearl sequence, we meet the Fisher King of the Grail mysteries. And the Fisher King is this character who rules over a wasteland, but he's been wounded at a creative level. He's been, speared in the groin. And so he's lost this vitality and this creativity. And this becomes this metaphor for every one of us as we work with our Gene Keys profile and we look at our core wound and our calling, our vocation in the world. And so this image of the Fisher King and going through this transmutation becomes this archetypal character that many of us can recognize the Grail King within inside of ourselves. As the Grail King is healed, what was once a wasteland is now restored. It is regenerated because of the presence of the Grail. So mythologies like this offer something so rich to us in these times of transformation. They don't tell us what's going to happen, but they do show us how these archetypal beings have played throughout time. And we see almost like an evolutionary spirit within them, how a character that is depicted in myths 2,000 years ago might show up differently in different eras. But the essence of them, the archetypal journey within them, it might span over thousands of years, but we can recognize those archetypal journeys. And so the mythical imagination can invite us into communion with some of these archetypes, to invite them, not in a way that we identify them with them. There can be a real challenge in identifying ourselves with a single archetype rather than recognizing what we're working with the energies of them in our life. It's the same with the Gene Keys. I wouldn't say, oh, Ross is a 25th Gene Key. No, Ross is Ross. Even Ross is a label on something that cannot be defined, right? And so we don't say you're a 25th Gene Key, I'm a second Gene Key. That we're identifying with a number and an archetype there. But just in the same way we do with Gene Keys, when we work with mythology, we're inviting these archetypes into our life to work with us, to transform us. And we have to do that with reverence. We have to invoke a spirit of ritual and communion with them. And we can only do it with a presence within, like a deep listening. But I do feel, for the worlds as we're in right now, Michael Meade is a great mythologist. There's one story he shares, and it's about the words of somebody who wrote 2,000 years ago, and everything he was writing could have been written for the crises we're going through today. So we get to witness through mythology, we get to witness through these archetypal characters, the cyclical nature of the human journey and our relation to the world around us. So that's probably as short as I can get with it today.
And I love it because for me anyway, it conjured all sorts of images and ideas and thoughts, and I could relate to things. And I think that speaks to what it is that you're sharing. And I love that. One of the things that I was gifted when I worked at the treatment center is this idea of sharing a mythical story and asking clients to find themselves in the story. Where do you see yourself? What hooks you? And it's one of the things I love to do the most. And it was one of the things the clients loved to experience. And that's the body of work that you're speaking to, because we can more easily see ourselves in a story than we can in our life, but we don't necessarily connect the dots that, oh, I am the story.
Yeah.
And that's playing out in my life right now, that there's this mirroring.
Yeah, and I find I can really listen for the synchronicities, and as you start to recognize these archetypes, like a few years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, we're in the Wizard of Oz here. This is we've got Oz, we've got this over here. And in fact, I was hosting a call with a group of people where we were talking about this, and one of the guys was like, I'm sorry, I have to leave. There's a tornado coming. I'm like, okay, Dorothy, you come back later.
There's no place like home.
No place like home. Yeah. But, it's what you said there. It's like when I read a story to myself or I read a story aloud, that same story could be heard by 13 different people and something different about the story
Yes.
resonated. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same with the gene keys. When you read one of the gene keys in the book, three people might read the same and come away with something quite different within the gene key. And
Mm.
so my love of it in that way is that we allow the symbols to unravel for us rather than, I have teachers that I work with in Celtic mythology and symbolism, and they don't tell me what a sword means in mythology. They don't tell me what a spear means. They invite it as a symbol into our lives and we unravel the meaning for ourselves. And it's just, yeah, it's beautiful for me. I love that. I love stories. I love storytelling, and I love seeing people responding to stories. So I loved hearing what you shared there, that this is something you've taken in and that worked with people in that way,
Oh,
because
they
that's what I
loved it.
find too.
Hmm. All right. Thank you, Matthew. I knew that this moment was going to be a hard one of bringing this conversation to a close, and that's okay because I have this memory of someone saying to me, the highest compliment is more, please. And so I'm imagining folks on the edge of their chair wanting more. And I think that's the perfect place to kind of pause and bring our conversation to a close. And I'll do that by asking you to answer a question, which is, what's one simple way someone could connect with the sacred today?
Pause. Just whenever you find yourself moving and just getting caught up in the chores and the tasks, but from a place of like, a busy mind, just take a pause. Just put the broom down, hold the broom, whatever you're doing, just pause, just breathe, just center within. And in that pause, you provide a moment for a pivot, for a change in consciousness, for an experience of the sacred. And watch how your experience of washing dishes changes, of the mundane changes. How can you bring that sacred into your daily moments so that you're not having to go off to some kind of mountain or ashram in India, but that you can bring that pause and that sacredness into this moment, this here and now.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for anybody who wants to stay connected with your work, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, my website is my name, MatthewAshdown.ca. That's two T's in Matthew, MatthewAshdown.ca. And you can find me on Matthew Ashdown Grail Quests on Facebook and the same on Instagram as well. And those are some of the best places. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website as well. That way you'll find out upcoming events, and I do them locally here on Vancouver Island. I do online events as well. So those are some of the best ways to keep a tab on what's up and where I am.
Excellent. And we'll share those links in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, Matthew, I just want to say that I feel a warmth around having this conversation with you, and I feel like it was very synchronistic, and I'm so glad that I got to share my experience as part of the conversation. And I just love the work that you do and the alignment between the work that I do, and so grateful for the depth that you brought to this conversation and sharing your gifts with us.
Thank you. And thank you for being open to that depth as well. There's that 59th gene key gift of yours, but I could feel there's a real welcoming to allow ourselves to go that far with it. And yeah, this can be very deep and profound work when we allow it. So thank you so much for your invitation to come on today, and I would gladly come back again at some point in the future.
I would love to have you again if that flows, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a yes.
And to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take good care. Thank you for joining us here on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. You can find more Sacred Sundays episodes, as well as other conversations from the Sacred Village podcast, at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Feel free to share this episode with someone who might need it. Until next time, may your Sunday be slow and sacred. Bye for now.